I knew Keith Palmer. Keith Palmer was a friend of mine. He was the gallant police officer who sacrificed his life exactly 1 year ago on this day, a dismal, rainy morning. I was in Manchester, actually, when I heard the news breaking on Sky News in a cafe I was in. I waited to see who the police officer was that had been fatally injured by a former junkie, domestic abuser, wife beater, low life, hooker using piece of trash, who called himself a Muslim and who said he was acting in the name of Islam. Keith Palmer and I talked every day for many, many years. Every day as I drove into Parliament, I had to stop, as everyone did, to have the car checked for explosives and so on. Took 2 to 3 minutes to complete that check, and those 2 to 3 minutes I spent virtually every day talking to Keith Palmer. And so when I saw eventually the picture of the slain officer on the television screens, I was filled with a profound sadness which has come back again today. Keith wasn't the only person cruelly murdered that day. Of course, 5 people were murdered and many more had their lives ruined. People were left without their husbands and their wives. People were left without their mothers and their fathers. People were left without their brothers and their sisters and their friends. And those who escaped serious injury are scarred forever and terrified at the sound of a speeding car. That car should never have been able to get onto the pavement at Westminster Bridge, a point to which I intend to return on another topic. But it's vital to remember 2 things. First of all, the cafe I was sitting in Manchester when this horrific attack occurred was a Muslim cafe. All the workers were Muslims, and all the customers were Muslims. In Longsight, in Manchester, everyone around me was a Muslim, and every last one of them was sick to the pit of their stomach that such a thing seemed even then likely to have been carried out in the name of their religion. And no approach to combating terrorism can possibly work unless it harnesses the latent, intrinsic, inherent revulsion that the Muslim population of Britain, 2 millions strong, feel about this kind of terrorism. And so an approach which calls itself prevent but actually ends up better named as provoke is not going to work. Some of you may have seen my film last night. I hope in time all of you will have seen it. It'll be online later today, rt.com. It's called The Patriot Game. It looks at the British far right. The British far right, with their Islamophobic fervour and hate speech and action, of course, make the lives of Islamist extremists easier. They act as recruiting sergeants for extremism. Every time a Muslim girl has the hijab pulled from her head, or a Muslim elderly man is attacked on the way home from mosque, every time a Muslim woman is insulted in the shops or in the bus queue by the kind of people that support British fascism, the ground is watered, fertilized for the extremists, these siren voices who seek to lure Muslims, particularly young Muslims, onto the rocks of separatism, extremism, fanaticism, and violence. We'll be talking about the 1 year anniversary of the Westminster Bridge attack. The year has gone fast in some ways, but slow in others, if you even begin to calibrate all that has happened in our country and in the world over the intervening 12 months. Which brings me to Boris Johnson. Short of appointing the Duke of Edinburgh as our Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs, I said at the time it was impossible to make a worse choice as Foreign Secretary than Boris Johnson. A man who'd described African children as grinning pickaninnies with watermelon smiles. A man who'd insulted not just the people of other countries, but even the people in the north and west of our own country, Liverpool being a case in point. A man with not a scintilla of finesse, with more education than brains, the best educated fool in Christendom. And for a long time I sublimated, as we were on the same side in the great Brexit battle, my frankly bottomless contempt for Boris Johnson. But he's now become positively dangerous. He is a political and diplomatic arsonist who is setting fire to Britain's interests abroad and imperiling the lives and safety of British citizens abroad too, particularly in the run-up to the World Cup in Russia this summer. I'm not going to reopen the frankly bamboozling case of the poisoning in Salisbury. I've spoken enough, perhaps, about that today. It's perfectly possible to have a political dispute with a military and energy superpower without stooping from the gutter into the sewer. But that's what happened yesterday. In response to the loathsome Ian Austin, who scraped back into Parliament with 250 votes at the last election, in the most disappointing result of the evening, the Blairite, Iraq war supporting, Corbyn coup organiser Ian Austin, in the Foreign Affairs Select Committee yesterday, and Austin had his say on Mike Graham's show just an hour ago, Boris Johnson added his voice to Austin's odious comparison of the World Cup 2018 with the Berlin Olympic Games presided over by Adolf Hitler in 1936. He thus compared the newly elected president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, with the greatest mass murderer of all time, the author and executioner of the Holocaust, Adolf Hitler. Now, I don't know if every listener is as aware as they should be as to just how odious and devastating a series of remarks those were, not only in Russia but in all the territories of the former Soviet Union. Putin is not Hitler. Russia is not Nazi Germany. As a matter of fact, Putin's brother and his father were fighting Adolf Hitler and the Nazis in the sieges of Leningrad and Stalingrad. The people of Russia sacrificed 26 million war dead. Their contribution to the defeat of Hitler and fascism was hailed by Winston Churchill so many times it would take me the rest of this show to adumbrate those. Churchill said that the Red Army broke the back of Nazi Germany, tore the guts from the Wehrmacht. In feats of arms unparalleled, he said, in all human history, and made superhuman sacrifice. The war remains a big thing in Russia, even if it no longer is for people done certain as here. They remember the 26 million dead. They pray upon their graves. They remember them. And for a British Foreign Secretary, I'm putting aside the trash, Austin, a British Foreign Secretary, to make those remarks yesterday is not only unforgivable, it's certainly not going to be forgiven in Moscow, but it is positively dangerous. It was the political equivalent of throwing acid in the face of the Russian people. But the disfiguring is all ours. Our people will suffer as a result. And so I launched last night a Sack Boris Johnson campaign. This man, this Bullingdon buffoon, has become a political arsonist, and it's not a joke any longer. Now, the words you never want to hear, dear listeners, in your life are that Tom Bauer is writing a book about you. Because he's a friend of mine, I hope it never happens to me. It's happening now to Jeremy Corbyn, whose biography he's writing, and it's just happened to the man I called yesterday a prancing, petulant popinjay Prince Charles. Tom Bauer's book, Rebel Prince, is before me on the desk as I speak, and Tom Bauer is coming in here to speak to you about it. If you've been following the serialization in the Daily Mail, you'll already know how devastating a volume it is. All of that, plus Theresa May's trip to Brussels. That's going to go well. Coming up in the next 2 hours and 40 minutes.